Radio silence. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And hey, it's Webinar Friday again. Isn't that fantastic? Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, for those of you that do not know me, we do have a few people that are new. Excuse me. We do have a few people that are new here. So my name is Alex Schroeder. I am the CEO of Vet Prep Australia. We are a specialist sanction management consultancy. And guys, I've been around in the vet sector for far longer than I care to remember. It makes me feel old. But to give you an idea, I do a lot within the vet sector. You know, I was part of the initial ASQA stakeholder liaison group, which I think we started in 21-ish, right about there. It was meant to be for 2 years, and I think 6 years later, the SRG was finally stopped, and I stopped working with ASQA in the ASQA stakeholder liaison group. I've also done a few other things. I've been involved with RTOs Queensland. I wrote the Cert 4 in RTO compliance. I wrote the Diploma of RTO compliance management. I've written a whole lot of non-accredited courses. I do a lot of tribunal work, etc., etc., etc. So if you want to know more about me, for those of you that don't know me, if you want to know more about me, feel absolutely free to go and stalk me on Instagram. Not Instagram. Feel absolutely free to go and stalk me on LinkedIn. I promise you, I will absolutely not be offended. Okay, let us start off with today. Give me one ticket. Oh, not one ticket, 110. Bit of housekeeping. Guys, I've tried to time the content of the webinar and also the quantity of the content so that there is time for Q&A at the end of the session. However, as the regulars know, sometimes I may decide to have my timing perfectly and things just don't work out that way. Or sometimes what happens is we might get to Q&A time and there might not be enough time to answer everybody's questions. And also it's okay. So if we get to the stage where we haven't been able to get to answering your questions, please email info@arcp.edu.au and the ARCP guys will forward your email to me. Now, really, really important, if you do email a question in, please include your mobile number, because sometimes when I get questions sent to me, sometimes it's quick and simple and I can just shoot you back an email, but sometimes it's far easier for me to just pick up the phone, call you and have a chat about your question. If it is a case of, hey, you know what, I think it's going to be better or you're going to get more out of it if I just pick up the phone, I don't feel like trying to figure out what your mobile number is. So if you are able to, or if you do send a question in, please include your mobile number. It just makes my life easier. Similarly, I'm still on the questions. If you get to over the weekend or sometime next week and you go, you know what, I should have asked that question. Guys, just email the ARCP guys. They are lovely, and they will forward your emails to me, and I will get back to you as soon as I very, very possibly can. Obviously, you know, sometimes we've got questions that come in that sound like they are crucial to the RTO asking. Like after last week's webinar, I think, oh my gosh, my phone blew up for most of Friday afternoon and a lot of Monday, with providers that were calling and just saying, we need to talk to you, we've got problems with ASQA. So obviously, if I can, or if in my opinion your question comes through and it is absolutely crucial, or it's a critical question, then I always prioritize the critical questions, or what appears to be a critical question, to ones that I think we can wait for a day or two. Okay, enough about those questions. Future webinar, guys, we've got some really, really good webinar topics coming up. Go and have a look at ARCP's page, ARCP EDU AU/webinars, and make sure that if you want to attend a webinar, make sure that you register as soon as possible, because our numbers are limited, even on the new software. As always, ASQA audits and regulatory activities, having a very, very quick look at that. Guys, if you are a CRICOS provider, ASQA is currently, there is so much happening in the space with CRICOS providers, and it's not nice and friendly and coochie-coo kind of stuff. There's so much going on, and CRICOS providers are under the pump so much, or they're under regulatory scrutiny so much at the moment, that for the first time ever, I am going to be running a webinar specifically for CRICOS providers. I'm doing that next Friday, which is the 1st of May. So if you are a CRICOS provider, whether or not you are having issues with ASQA, or whether or not you have had past issues with ASQA, do yourself a favor and come to that webinar, because you are going to want to hear what we're going to be discussing. But ASQA isn't also having fun and games only with CRICOS providers. There's a lot of domestic providers that are currently being hit. And as you guys know, ASQA has got their, I think it's called their Special Investigations Team, that essentially, if they suspect that RTOs are doing weird and wonderful things, that they've now got their Special Investigations Team that also get involved. So guys, whether you are domestic, whether you are CRICOS, whether you are not-for-profit, regardless of how you deliver, the time has never been, or it's never been more crucial than, let me try that again. It's now more crucial than it has been in a long time, for you to be 100% audit ready at 100% of the time, and also to ensure that how you have interpreted the requirements of the 2025 standards in your operations is actually correct. And as my regulars know, that as part of the ASQA stakeholder liaison group, we actually, the SLG actually helped ASQA back in, I think it must have been November 2024. We spent time with ASQA at the Melbourne office, actually going through the 2025 standards and working out the kind of stuff that they should include in their practice guides. I was also quite involved with ASQA and DEWA when the 2025 standards were being sorted out. So when I say to you, it's really, really important to make sure that your interpretation and your RTO's application of the requirements of the 2025 RTO standards, and of course the credential policy and everything else as well, is correct. Internal audits, and I'm watching the time. Internal audits, guys, as always, please do not neglect getting your compliance consultant to come in regularly and do your internal audits. Don't try and do them yourself. As I say almost every single webinar, remember, if you are doing your audits internally by your own compliance team, essentially you are auditing your own work, which in itself is just fraught with danger. Remember also that the 2025 standards has an absolute focus now on governance and quality as well. And what we are finding ASQA is looking at is, does your RTO actually have a quality assurance schedule? Is it being followed, and is the RTO trying to do it all themselves, or are they actually getting independent oversight on the operations as well? Certificates of attendance for today. Kelly will get those out. Kelly from ARCP will get those out to you guys within the next 3 business days. Kelly has been an absolute superstar up until now, and a lot of the attendance certificates go out sometimes the same day, sometimes by the Monday. Please don't email ARCP and say, am I getting an attendance certificate? Because the time that ARCP then spends to go back and say, yes, of course you are, Alex said it in the webinar, it was on the slide, etc., is time that they should be spending getting the certificates ready. So yes, before ARCP gets emails and before I get text messages with, am I getting a certificate of attendance? Yes, you are. They should go out within 3 days. Just wait patiently, please. All right, I think that is housekeeping done and dusted. I've now spoken about nothing for the last 9 minutes. Guys, today we are looking at what to do if your ASQA audit didn't go well. So, as part of this, what we are going to be looking at is you need to be able to understand when you get your ASQA audit report. You need to be able to understand exactly what they are saying in the audit report. You need to be able to decode the findings, what the notices mean, etc., as well as what the RTO standards really require of you in each of the stages of not only your operations, but also how that relates to your audit report. I'm going to chat with you guys about your rights and options, about, if you do get a unsatisfactory audit report, what your rights and options are. We're going to be looking at building a credible corrective action plan, what should be in there, what ASQA are really looking for. And then, of course, really important, how to repeat falling into, or how to repeat allowing yourself into another situation of being non-compliant. Because another thing that ASQA has got very little, how do I put it politely, got very little appetite for, I think is a good way of putting it, is RTOs that are repeatedly finding themselves to be non-compliant. So please, yeah, like I said, we'll go through that. Okay. Understanding your audit outcome. And guys, before we go any further, absolute transparency. There are going to be things that I am going to be saying today and that I've got highlighted in red in some of the slides that are going to become, that will come across as very salesy. You guys all know me, at least the regulars. You guys know me. I don't use the webinars to try and push any of our sales, to try and push any of our products and our services onto you. I don't try and sell ARCP's products to you, or even though they sponsor this. It's something that I hated when consultants run webinars and they spend 30% actually sharing information and the 70% of the time trying to sell you onto what they do. Having said that, like I said, you're going to be finding that there are things that I have got in bold capitals. There are things that I've got in red bold capitals on the PowerPoints today, and that is because they are important. And I even want to go as far as to say they are crucial for you to understand, not for you to understand, but for you to remember and for you to act upon. So bear with me. And yeah, look, if you don't like the fact that I've done, these things, don't email me, because I am unapologetic about that. I'm doing it for your benefit, not for mine. Whew, I just felt like I'm so sorry. I almost felt like a like a school teacher that's sort of laying down the law. I didn't mean to. Okay, so let's go into the actual nitty-gritty of today. Remember, guys, that the RTO standards, the NVR Act, as well as the ESOS Act, if you are a CRICOS provider, makes absolutely no, that they don't, the relevant regulations and legislation doesn't beat around the bush. Every single provider is absolutely obligated to be 100% compliant 100% of the time. And as far as our regulator is concerned, there are no exceptions. There are no excuses, because if you are not 100% compliant 100% of the times, and especially if you are suddenly being audited by ASQA, you are not only in breach of the various the very standards that you have failed to meet, but you're also in breach of the various acts that require you to be absolutely compliant the whole time. So, and guys, being 100% compliant, especially at audit time, it's more about being compliant or not being compliant. And you'll find that when your audit report comes out, your audit report is also not only about are you compliant or are you non-compliant. And of course, if you are compliant with all the areas that you are compliant with, you get a yep, compliant, and you don't get an explanation. However, in your audit report, where you have instances of non-compliance, yes, your audit report is going to give you examples of where your operations are non-compliant. And look, in all honesty, and or in with what's what I'm trying to think of, realistically speaking, the quality of the examples that they provide, the quality of and the quantity of the examples that they provide is a lot better than it has been over the years, or even a number of years ago. However, your ASQA audit report is not necessarily going to list every single one of the non-compliances that you have under one area. So let's speak for argument's sake about, let's talk about train and assessor credentials. If you have non-compliances where your train and assessor credentials are concerned, your audit report is not necessarily going to pinpoint every single area that you are non-compliant in. It's going to say to you, or it might read, these are areas that the RTO is non-compliant in. And when you read them, it's almost as if, I wouldn't say they give you a high level or high level feedback necessarily, because they do go into some details. However, if you get your audit report is not going to pinpoint every single little thing that you are non-compliant in. The regulator expects your RTO to know enough about compliance to be able to realize that, hang on, if I am non-compliant here, I am non-compliant there as well. So where I'm coming from is that in your audit report, you will often find, because so many of the standards are interlinked, you will often find that because you're non-compliant in this standard, you are automatically non-compliant in that standard as well. As I said a few minutes ago, remember, because RTOs must be 100% compliant, 100% of the time, let's say for argument, and if you are not, you haven't only breached that specific standard, you've also breached your obligation to be 100% compliant. And to bring that into context, so we'll keep with the train and assessor credential example. So to keep it in context, your train and assessor credentials have failed. You have failed audit due to train and assessor credentials being met. Yes, you are in breach of the the credential policy, but you are also in breach of a number of the other standards that are linked through to the credential policy, and you are automatically also non-compliant with your obligation to be 100% compliant. Now, your audit report will probably give you some details about where your train and assessor credentials have failed compliance and or the credential policy. But when it comes down to your obligation to be 100% compliant, where it comes down to identifying that you have failed that might not give you a lot of details. So what you need to be able to do is you must be able to read between the lines. And when I say read between the lines, what I mean is you must be able to take your ASQA audit report and go and dissect it, go and unpack it, and actually understand 100% how things link, and understand 100% that if you are non-compliant, for argument's sake, with your training and assessment, or the way that you're delivering training and assessment, it means that you may potentially also be compliant here and here and here and here. So, and I'm repeating myself, bear with me. So please don't forget that when you are looking at an audit report, you need to be able to have the skill to go and unpack it and read between those lines, and also be able to read into what they are actually saying in the audit report, because it isn't always obvious. Now, guys, if you get an audit report that does highlight non-compliances, please don't try and deal with it yourself. Please get hold of your compliance consultant, because here's the thing. If your RTO found itself to actually be or have submitted non-compliant materials at the time of audit, and that is after you've actually had time to go and review what you were going to submit before you submitted it. If your compliance team, or if your operational team, whoever in your RTO, was working at submitting the audit evidence, if at that stage you didn't actually have the skills, the knowledge, or the attention to detail to go, stop, before we go and submit this TAS, we have got a hole here, we've got a hole here, we need to tidy this up, we need to tidy that up. If you weren't able to catch it when you were actually submitting audit evidence, why on earth would you have the expectation that you can now go and fix it internally and address the audit report non-compliances internally without specialist assistance? And I'm not suggesting for one moment that if your team did submit evidence that was then found to be non-compliant, that there's something wrong with your team's skills and experience. But where I'm coming from, guys, is that, remember, as RTO operators and as RTO practitioners, as compliance practitioners, you guys deal with compliance and operations within your RTO. So within a space about this big. As compliance consultants, we deal with this day in, day out. This is how we earn, this is our job. And where I'm coming from is that you guys on average will go through one ASQA audit every, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years. And of course, here are all your RTO mates and their ASQA audit stories as well. As compliance consultants, we work with this day in, day out. I hope that makes sense. And guys, even more so, if you have non-compliances, and with that is a letter of intent to levy any kind of sanctions against you, be it cancellation, be it sanctions, be it anything. If you get the letter that says intent to ... At that point in time, after you've sort of touched your heart and gone, oh my God, at that point in time, you need to call a specialist immediately. And when I say a specialist, you do not, at that stage, you are not looking to speak with your generalist compliance consultant that helps you guys with your TASs and your validations and things like that. You absolutely need to speak to a specialist who specializes, that sounds a bit silly, but whose expertise lie in what happens next. So to give you guys an idea, I've had conversations, as I said, after last Friday's webinar, my phone basically blew up for about a day and a half. And I had a chat with an RTO, what's today? Friday, I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, that were trying to get, or that had received a love letter from ASQA about their governance and about their governance structures, and about how ASQA is questioning, or they've been found non-compliant, and they were going to, I think they received a notice of intent to cancel, and the wording in there, or what ASQA was pinpointing that to, was governance and insufficient oversight and governance structures. And when we dissected everything, it all came down to fit and proper person requirement, documents that weren't completed correctly and adequately. However, when we read the report that came with it, and when we read the intent letter, it was actually about more than what it first appeared. And guys, once again, unless you are expert in looking at looking at letters of intent to sanction, intent to cancel, intent to anything, get on the phone to a specialist immediately, because you need specialist help at that time. And once again, your everyday compliance consultant, although they might say, yes, of course, we deal this the whole time, they do not. There are less than a handful of specialists in Australia that can help you with this kind of thing. So, like I said, you need a specialist. So, I've now gone on enough about specialists. There's only so much I can say before I start sounding a little bit silly, just repeating myself. All right, so you have got your audit reports come out and you were not 100% compliant. You are going to have one of three options. And obviously your audit report and the accompanying letter is going to tell you what your options are. So if you had minor-ish non-compliances, something that ASQA goes, you know what, you guys really need to fix this. However, it isn't that major that we believe your continued operations is going to cause a threat, not a threat, but it's going to, sort of cause a threat to public opinion and, the quality of the training that you're delivering. You may very well, in your letter, say, hey, you've got to go and fix this and this and this. And when you fix it, you don't have to submit your evidence, your rectified evidence, but you must keep a copy of that rectified evidence on file. And more so, if you do have a rectify without resubmission, they will give you the number of days in which you have to rectify. I think it's normally 21 days. Now, here's the bummer. So often, the RTOs get that and they go, oh, thank God, we don't have to resubmit. It's minor enough, etc., etc., etc. And then one of two things happen. What usually happens is they usually go, because it isn't that critical, we'll get to that tomorrow or next week. And then before you know it, tomorrow or next week is now 2-3 months behind us. Or they go and rectify it, but they don't actually keep documentary evidence of their rectifications and the dates on which the rectification was done. Because remember, in this instance, at that point in time, you are so relieved relieved sounds a bit dramatic, but you are so relieved that it was only minor non-compliances and that you don't have to resubmit, you only have to fix and keep evidence, that it goes and you sort of go, oh, okay, business as usual. But here's the sting in the tail, guys. So then you get your next ASQA audit. And your next ASQA audit might not be for 2 or 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years. And in your next ASQA audit, they ask you to submit the rectifications that you did going back to the last audit, when you were told rectify, but you no need to resubmit. And at that second audit, not only do they want to see evidence of your rectification, but they also want documentation or documentary evidence to confirm that your rectification was done within those 21-day period. And do you know how often we are called in with to help RTOs, because they've now had another ASQA audit, and apart from other non-compliances, they are being whacked by the fact that in the previous audit, they were asked to go and rectify some small non-compliances, but at the current audit, the RTOs were not able to provide documentary evidence that they did it within the 21 days, and they are then whacked left, right, and center. Because ASQA's attitude in that instance becomes, well, previously we said to you, hey, you know what? It was so minor, just go and do it, and we trust you to do it within this time frame. And then go and put your evidence on the shelf. We'll come back to it later. So if it's now the second audit and you can't show ASQA that you did it within the right time frame, they go, but we trusted you last time. You betrayed our trust. So no sympathy. Does that make sense? And guys, remember, ASQA has heard it all. You know, when we were at school and we didn't hand in assessments, or at uni, and we didn't hand in assessments, assignments, homework, etc. And, oh, you know, my dog ate my breakfast, blah, 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 blah. They've heard it all. Remember, there are these days only, I think, 3,900 or 800 and something providers. There used to be a lot more providers. The excuses that providers make, they've heard it all a quazillion times. So do not go and try, or don't think that if you are caught not having done the rectification without submission within your 21-day time frame, it's going to come back and bite you. And also it's a case of the way, and there's a very specific way that you go and keep your documentation and but you establish your paper trail in what you did, how you did it, when you did it, within what time frame, which we're not going to go into today. But like I said, just be mindful that fix without resubmitting is not, it's not a case of, okay, let's go and forget about it and get to it 3 months later or 3 years later. It is going to come back and bite you. All right, so that was your first option. So your next, or the next option that you will have is, if there are non-compliances that ASQA deem to be more than just you've tied your shoelaces incorrectly, you will generally get 21 days in which to go and rectify those non-compliances, and then resubmit do a resubmission. Sometimes, though, they may give you 14 days. And guys, it isn't 14 or 21 business days. It is 21 or 14 calendar days. And if you've been given any time less than 21 days, it is because ASQA considers the level of the non-compliances to be relatively worrisome to them. Yet they do need to give you, depending on circumstances, they generally do need to give a rectification option. However, like I said, if it's less than 21 days, there's something in there that is of concern to them. So you then go ahead and you've now done your rectification. Now, guys, once again, if you've been given the opportunity of rectification, so in 21 and 14 days, once again, don't try and do it yourself. Get a specialist in, because without trying to be condescending or trying to devalue the value of and the expertise of your compliance team, if the documentation went in initially and were found non-compliant, if you've now got a resubmission opportunity, and the same people are going to try and fix the documents that were previously found to be non-compliant, it doesn't make sense, does it? So get your compliance consultant in, and if need be, get a specialist in, but make sure that your initial resubmission of your rectifications is correct. Because if they're not, you're going to get, remember, if you've been given the opportunity to rectify within 21 days or slightly less, this is your second bite at the cherry. Your first bite was your initial audit evidence. Your second bite is, look, you don't have things correctly. Go and fix your work, resubmit, and we will have another look at it. So Guys, the slide is a little bit wrong, so just bear with me. Don't look at the slide too much. So you've done your rectification, and ASQA come back and they go, you're still non-compliant. At that stage, in all likelihood, you will be given an opportunity to apply for an internal review. But here's the bummer, because now if you're now at the stage of your rectification was still non-compliant, they may very well, depending on circumstances, they may very well give you a third bite of the cherry. However, it isn't straightforward. Because what will normally happen is if you get another non-compliant letter or another non-compliant audit report in the same event, you will ordinarily get a letter from ASQA that says you are yet again non-compliant. So you've now had two bites of the cherry. You are still non-compliant, and we now intend to take the following regulatory action against you. And it could be suspension. It could be suspension of certain scope items. It could be cancellation. It could be other kinds of sanctions. And that is why I say that if you've got non-compliances after an audit or through an audit report, don't try and do it yourself. Don't try and fix only by yourself. So you've now had your second bite of the cherry. You've submitted. They come back. They say you're still non-compliant, and we intend to decide whether or not we should take regulatory action against you. 90% of the time, and I'd even say maybe about 95, 97% of the time, one of your options will be to apply for an internal review. But in that same letter, if they do intend to sanction you, they will most likely say to you, and we are going to, and these sanctions will come into effect on this date. Now, in that instance, the very, very first thing that you need to do is you need to get ASQA to put a stay on their decision to sanction you. And what a stay really means in layman's terms is that ASQA has said, hey, you know what, we are going to throw these sanctions your way, and we're going to do it as of, let's pick a date, as of the 15th of May. You then need to go and say, do not put any restrictions on us on the 15th of May. We would like you to hold that decision until you have seen the stuff that we are about to resubmit. So essentially, you're getting a third bite of the cherry, which is your internal review. And I'm still saying the same, don't attempt any audit rectifications without a specialist, but especially when we get to when we get to the internal review step, because as I said, that's your third bite of the cherry. So the patience with ASQA's patience is now thinner than thin, but legally and as far as the act is concerned, they have to give you all of these options. Your internal review is going to take can take, I think, up to 60 days, sometimes a bit longer. If you have gone for an internal review, if your internal review is still non-compliant, your other option is then going to be to go to the tribunal. Now, what you want to do, and this isn't about the tribunal, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the tribunal, but what you want to remember is that if you are going for an internal review, while you are sitting there and waiting, while you've now submitted for the third time, your rectified evidence, you then want to, my suggestion to you would be while you're waiting for ASQA to do your internal review, get a specialist consultant. I'm getting tired of saying the word specialist consultant, but get a specialist consultant to come in and do a full audit on your entire operation. And the reason for that is this. Remember when ASQA came in and they did your audit, they only did your audit on a small section of your operations. The reason why you want to do a full audit while your internal review is going on is in the event that your internal review is not successful, and you are able to escalate this to the Appeals Review Tribunal, the ART, formerly ATT. By the time that they come back, you want to make sure that your RTO is now 100% compliant. So at that stage, you can go to the ART and say, we want you to stop ASQA from trying to sanction us or suspend some of our scope or to cancel us, because our RTO is 100% compliant right now. And therefore, there is no need for any regulatory action against us. So that is really important. When you are at the internal review stage, depending on, sorry guys, I'm just going one step back. I'm also looking at the time and I've lost track of time again, my apologies. When you are at your internal review stage, you may also be given an opportunity to negotiate an undertaking to return to compliance. And basically what that looks like is you're going back to ASK when you're saying to them, sorry, is that at internal review stage? No, I actually think your return to compliance might be within the 21 rectification days. I just need to go and double check on that. Things have changed a little bit. But what's a negotiated undertaking to return to compliance is we are literally going to ask them, we're saying, hey, you know what? You have given me a shopping list this long of things that you expect me to do within 21 days. It is going to take me longer than 21 days to do. So let's negotiate that our RTO will complete all of these actions within a certain period of time. And it might be, usually you are given, I think, up to 12 weeks to do it. But at that stage, your consultant, your expert, is going to be able to help you negotiate that as well. But like I said, undertaking to return to compliance is also an option, and that will be an option before you go and take the matter to the ART. And like I said, this isn't about the ART and this isn't doomsday, so we're not going to go about what happens after that. Now, guys, then we are in a stage of, oh, it works, I got to the right side at the right time. If you are going to be doing a any kind of rectification, be it a negotiated RTC or be it just general rectification, it's a really good idea to help you or it's a really good idea for you to actually submit a corrective action plan as well. And this is, like I said, really it applies for if you're going to an RTC as well. But what is a really good idea is when you do your RTC, is to be able to, for your RTO, to go and self-identify what the root causes were for these non-compliances. So not only what they said in their audit report, but what the actual causes were and how you are going to address those within your RTC period. As we said earlier on, with the RTCs, ordinarily, they give you up to 12 weeks in which to do it. I've had RTOs say to me, you know what? Let's tell them that we only need 8 weeks because it will make us look better. Or let's tell them we can get it done within 4 weeks. It will make us look better. Guys, here's the truth, or here's the crux of the matter, is whether you ask in your RTC for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, or 12 weeks, a shorter time frame is not going to make you look any better than if you take the whole 12 weeks that's usually on offer. The difference, however, is if you've got a shopping list this long of non-compliances to go and rectify, do you know how very quickly 6 weeks go by? Because, or even 8 weeks or even 10 weeks, because realistically what needs to happen is, depending on how your compliance expert is working with you, but the rectifications need to get done. Then they need to go and get reviewed. Then they need to go and be approved by the RTO. But let's say, for argument's sake, that whether it's the RTO's team or the consultant's team that does the rectifications, there is so much toing and froing going. or to and froing between the consultant and the RTO. And before you've blinked your eyes, you are a day or two away from the negotiated RTC date. And once you've negotiated that date with ASQA, that date is set in stone as they are concerned. I have seen enough RTOs believing that going for a shorter period than 12 weeks is going to really look good and then get burnt, then I can tell you guys. And you know what? It is an absolutely ridiculous idea. And what's even worse is if you're working with an RTO and you say to them, or you've been able to negotiate the 12 weeks, and then they decide at week 9 to go and submit, or they decide to then go to ASQA behind your back and say, we don't need 12 weeks, we'll need 8 or 10 or whatever weeks. And then suddenly you find that they've actually gone and just screwed things up. Forgive my language. Guys, if you're going to work to an RTC, to return to compliance, with your corrective action plan, you always address the critical non-compliances first, because from ASQA's point of view, remember they actually go and they actually look at your RTC, they look at your corrective action plan, but when they are also looking at your RTC, they want to see that the most critical non-compliances are addressed first. If you can get that right, you are a heck of a lot closer to them actually agreeing to a negotiated RTC. You're also going to, if you're applying for an RTC, you're also going to tell them how you are going to develop and address preventative actions to ensure that you will remain compliant after they've given you this break. And once again, guys, governance and quality systems is absolute king. And if you haven't seen this enough on the slides before, don't try and do your corrective action plan without the assistance of an expert. This is not your compliance consultant, your generalist compliance consultant. This usually does not fall into their area of expertise. At this stage, you want an expert. You do not want your generalist compliance consultant. And of course, one of the big things is also in whether you're working under a negotiated RTC, or whether you are going for an internal review, or whether you are going for a resubmission, regardless of what stage of your rectification submission stage you are at. The big thing is demonstrating genuine systemic change within your RTO, demonstrating to them how you are going to rebuild or ensure an absolute tight and workable culture of compliance within your RTO. And so often I hear RTOs say, oh, we don't understand, we've been found non-compliant. And I say to them, well, we need to show a culture of compliance. And they say to me, of course, we've got a culture of compliance. We do X, we do Y, we do Z. But guys, here's the actual perception of that. If you have gone and if you have failed audit, and if you have anything but minor non-compliances, you can stand on your head and you can shout through, or you can stand on the rooftop and you can shout for all the world to hear about the fantastic compliance culture that you have within your RTO. But the documentary evidence presented at audit time actually goes and tells its own story. So you want to demonstrate a genuine systemic change in the RTO's approach to compliance, including cultural change, focus on strong and effective governance, quality assurance, educate your staff, regular internal reviews, etc. And guys, in today's world, there is absolutely no reason for any RTO to neglect educating their staff. I mean, ARCP. Here are 1, 2, 3, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, 12 training products that ARCP alone has. in order to help RTOs train their staff. Because don't forget that ARCP, they only focus on training people within the vet sector. That's the only focus. That is exactly what ARCP was set up for. But it's not only ARCP. There are other RTOs out there that also do accredited courses and non-accredited courses that can actually help your staff. And yet, I don't know of any other RTOs that only also focuses on training within the vet sector. But hey, www.google.com.au, ask the question. I'm sure you'll find it. But where I'm really coming from is that there are so many opportunities out there for RTOs to be able to go and coach and mentor and train and educate their staff, because remember, that's what the new 2025 standards demand of your RTO, that you literally actually don't have excuse not to do it. I'm just busy getting these pop-up messages from Kelly going, you got to finish, Alex, you got to finish. So guys, this has been part 4 of the RTO series. As I said, don't forget that next Friday I am doing one specifically for cry cost providers, and that is because cry cost providers are being hit left, right, and center. So if you are a cry cost provider, no matter what your regulatory history has been and how successful you've been at audits, you really want to come to the cry cost one. Guys, very, very quick one. I am the Cert for an RTO Compliance and the Diploma of RTO Compliance Management. Both of those courses are coming up for renewal pretty shortly. And as part of that, I'm going to obviously be doing industry consultation. I've got an opportunity of massaging things a little bit. If you are interested to help me with industry consultation, and if you are interested in giving me an idea of what you think the Cert for an RTO Compliance and the Diploma of RTO Compliance Management could look like moving forward, shoot me an email. And also at this time, Sage from ARCP said to me yesterday that they're also going to do general industry consultation on the other training products. And what ARCP really, really wants to know is, with the Diploma of Quality Auditing, they have gone and they've contextualized, they've written all of their own learning material, and they've contextualized everything to RTO compliance practice, or to RTO compliance, be it their Diploma of Quality Auditing, their skill sets, you name it. But Sage did ask me to ask today in the webinar if anybody is willing or able or keen to help with industry consultation on the other ARCP courses as well. They'd love that, because obviously if these courses have been written specifically for you guys, and yeah, I think as I said, ARCP just wants to make sure that what they are delivering and how they are doing things is still hitting the spot. So email me alex@vetprep.net.au if you guys are interested, willing or able to help with industry consultation, or otherwise info@arcp.edu.au. Very, very last one before we go to Q&As. I'm sorry, guys. I know that I'm now rushing. Future webinar topics, go to arcp.edu.au. You'll see the webinar, what's the word I'm looking for? The webinar tab. Have a look at what webinars are coming up. I'm also going to be launching very, very shortly something called 10 at 10, where I will be sitting down with 10 people at a time, or 10 people in at one go, and for an hour, you guys, the 10 people that will be joining me, can go and just pick my brain silly if you want, but that will come. Question time. So give me a second. I know I've got the questions here somewhere. Okay. I've just been asked how long does it currently take? How long do to do tribunal matters currently take? Or sorry, how long to actually get to tribunal? Guys, that is not a straightforward answer because it's all dependent on what the circumstances are. And I often say to people, because people always ask me, and I often say to them, it's almost how long is a piece of string? Because what happens is going to ART, I've just got to take some water. Just give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Because if you do need to go to the ART, there are various stages. The first stage is always applying to the ART for a stay on ASQA's decisions. And that is always step one. It's the critical one. And if you don't get your, if you don't apply for your stay, well, then your operation is going to essentially be cut off at the legs while you're going through this ART process, which is what ASQA wants. Then it's a case of getting documentation together, etc., etc. When both parties are actually ready to start interacting with the ART member, there will usually be a conference call, a discussion, and what the ART member and an ART member is almost like a magistrate in a magistrate's court, but obviously different levels of court. So don't quote me 100% on that. But what the ART member will almost always do at first instance is they will say to both parties, they'll say to the ASQA legal team as well as to your lawyer, go away and see if you guys can negotiate this yourselves. And of course, that is the sweet spot. That is what we want. Because if your lawyer and the ASQA lawyer, if they can actually come to an agreement that both parties can live with. And it won't be something that both parties are 100% happy with. It's what both parties can live with. Then you are avoiding court, you are avoiding a trial, you're avoiding further costs, you're avoiding a very long drawn out matter, etc., etc., etc. From there, if you aren't able, if they're not able to come to any negotiation, we've heard of ART matters be done and dusted within 5 to 6 months. We've heard of ART matters taking 9 months plus to be finalized. So trust me that you don't want to find yourself in an ART situation, or you don't want to find yourself needing to go into an ART situation. If you are in a situation where you believe that you may need to go to the ART in the near future, or if you are at in the situation where you've had a really, really bad ASPA audit report, or if you are currently going through a really bad run with ASQA, just email me direct, alex@vetprep.net.au. I'm going to ask you, don't email me direct with other questions that you have, just that questions that weren't attended to today, unless actually, you know what, skip that. For today only, if you have any questions whatsoever, instead of emailing the ARCP team, guys, just email me directly. It might just be quicker given the seriousness of what we're discussing today. I'm so sorry, I keep on going on and on. Next question I've got here is, how often do RTOs get an opportunity to return to compliance? I'm assuming that you're meaning with your question a negotiated return to compliance opportunity. If that is what you are asking, then once again, as I said at the time, it all depends on the severity of your non-compliances. If ASQA is really, really, really worried about your RTO's operations, you may not be given an opportunity to negotiate an RTC. The opportunity to negotiate RTCs aren't given to every single RTO in every single circumstance. But once again, this is why it's absolutely vital for you at that stage to be working with an expert, because we know, or we've got a bloody good idea of sort of where we can, sort of where we have room for movement and where not. Guys, I've got Kelly once again virtually jumping up and down at me. I'm so sorry, Kelly. I'm going to take one more question, and then I'm going to ask you guys just to email any other questions through to me. Another question, is ASQA only going after international colleges or after domestic colleges as well? Guys, as I said at the start of this webinar, they are absolutely, Cricos colleges right now are absolutely just copying it, left, right, and center. However, if you, just because you are a domestic RTO, it doesn't mean that you are safe. They are auditing domestic RTOs as well, but obviously because of the nature of a Cricos college, and because Cricos colleges have got other legislation to deal with as well, apart from the RTO standards and the NVR Act, Cricos colleges are finding it, like I said, they are copying it harder. But don't think, if you are not an international college, that you are safe. You are not necessarily. Guys, I am going to love and leave you guys. Thank you so much for today. Thank you for joining me. We've had so many people here. It has been an absolute pleasure as always. I will see the Cricos colleges at the webinar next Friday. And once again, if you've got any questions, especially where audits and audit outcomes and audit rectification is concerned, drop me an email and I will get back to you guys as soon as possible. Have a brilliant weekend. Enjoy Anzac Day. And for those of you that are lucky enough to be in a state that gives you Monday off, enjoy. Victoria hasn't quite learned that if a public holiday falls on a weekend, that we should have an extra day. So thanks, Victoria. Guys, have a brilliant weekend. Have a brilliant long weekend. And I will see you guys here in, or the Cricos guys here next week. Cheers. Bye.